My name is Natalie, and I once died on an operating table twice, actually. Not in a war zone or a tragic accident, but in a sterile hospital room in Boston, while my biological family was too preoccupied to answer my desperate calls. For 29 years, I played the role of the diligent, responsible daughter, a quiet shadow to my sister Amber's dazzling spotlight. Growing up in an affluent suburb, my parents, driven by status, poured all their attention and resources into her, barely registering my existence. My achievements were met with distracted nods, my rare blood disorder dismissed as drama. Then came the night that ripped away my last illusions. As surgeons fought to save my life from internal bleeding, my parents and sister were busy at a glittering charity gala, their phones silenced, oblivious to my impending death. The irony was a cruel punch to the gut. While I literally bled out, they toasted to my sister's bright future. That night changed everything. It wasn't about revenge, but about a profound, gut-wrenching realization: I was truly alone. This isn't just my story of abandonment, it's a raw, honest look at what happens when you finally stop chasing love from those who refuse to give it. It's about finding the courage to walk away, to redefine family, and to build a life where you are not just seen, but cherished. If you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or fundamentally unimportant to the people who should champion you, this story is for you. Before I reveal the full, shocking truth of that night and the arduous journey that followed, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Your voice matters, and so does your well-being. Growing up, I was the quiet anchor in our affluent Boston suburb, the one everyone relied on, yet simultaneously overlooked. My younger sister, Amber, was the iridescent star around whom our family constellation endlessly spun. Every family photo album told the same silent, heartbreaking narrative: Amber, radiant and front and center, while I, with my serious gaze and straight brown hair, lingered awkwardly at the edges, a muted backdrop to her vibrant existence. This wasn't merely coincidence, it was a stark, visual testament to the Addams family dynamic. My parents, Richard and Eleanor, weren't overtly malicious, but their compass was undeniably calibrated to social standing. Dad, an investment banker, had clawed his way up from modest beginnings, while Mom, with her old money lineage, perpetually yearned for a social cachet just beyond her grasp. Success, for them, was measured in the glittering guest lists of their dinner parties, a fragile edifice built on appearances. Amber's arrival, 3 years after mine, solidified her reign. From her first breath, she became the sun in our family's orbit. Even as a toddler, her magnetic charm, crowned by perfect blonde curls and an infectious giggle, captivated everyone. I was her antithesis, earnest, studious, a creature of books rather than social theatrics. Natalie, why can't you be more like your sister? Echoed through my childhood, a constant, grating soundtrack. When I'd proudly present a report card adorned with straight A's, Mom would offer a perfunctory, "That's nice, dear," her eyes already drifting. But an A- for Amber would ignite a celebratory dinner at her favorite upscale restaurant, complete with fanfare. My 16th birthday brought practicalities: a planner, gift cards for school supplies, sensible sneakers. 2 years later, Amber's Sweet 16 exploded into an extravagant affair, complete with a hired DJ, gourmet catering, and a brand new car, gleaming with a custom paint job. I learned early to shrink my expectations, to swallow the bitter pill of disappointment, and to channel my longing into academic excellence, clinging to the faint hope that someday, my achievements would finally earn their pride. My sophomore year of college brought a chilling new reality: a diagnosis of a rare blood disorder. While not immediately life-threatening, it demanded constant vigilance, occasionally manifesting as debilitating fatigue and anemia. The phone call home was met with an unsettling casualness. "Honey, I'm sure it's not as serious as the doctors are making it sound," Mom chirped, her tone laced with a familiar dismissal. "You've always been sensitive." Dad's response was even colder, a chisel to my already fraying nerves: "Your mother's right. Medical schools teach doctors to exaggerate everything these days. Just take some vitamins. They never bothered to delve into the nuances of my condition, never inquired about my treatments or my struggles. At family gatherings, if a wave of exhaustion washed over me, I'd catch Mom's subtle eye roll, her whispered pronouncement to an eavesdropping relative, "Natalie's being dramatic again." Despite their chilling indifference, I pushed forward, excelling in my studies, eventually graduating summa cum laude with a degree in molecular biology. A coveted position at a prestigious Boston research laboratory awaited me, a role partly inspired by my own condition, focusing on developing novel treatments for blood disorders. My graduation day itself was a poignant microcosm of my life. My parents attended, certainly, but their attention remained tethered to their phones, coordinating the minutiae of Amber's impending study abroad adventure in Paris. They vanished immediately after the ceremony, missing the departmental honors reception where my research earned a special award. "Sorry, sweetie," Mom chirped, a flurry of hurried apologies as they dashed out the door. "We promised Amber we'd video chat about her Parisian apartment." "You understand." I understood, profoundly. I understood my place, the diligent, reliable background daughter, requiring minimal emotional investment. Meanwhile, Amber, having gracefully bowed out of college after 2 years, embarked on a peripatetic quest to find herself, sampling interior design, fashion merchandising, and event planning, each venture generously bankrolled by our parents. 3 years ago, following a 2-week luxury volunteer trip to Guatemala, she unveiled her crowning achievement, Bright Futures, a charity foundation ostensibly dedicated to providing educational opportunities for underprivileged children. In stark reality, it served as a glamorous social vehicle, a platform for networking rather than effective philanthropy. My parents, of course, underwrote the entire operation, including Amber's substantial administrative salary and a lavish designer office in downtown Boston. The foundation's raison d'etre seemed to be hosting opulent fundraising galas, where Boston's elite sipped champagne and basked in self-congratulatory glow, penning tax-deductible checks. Scant funds ever reached any actual educational programs, but as long as the parties sparkled, no one seemed to genuinely care. Despite the gaping chasm of their neglect, I clung to a semblance of family connection. I dutifully attended Sunday dinners when summoned, selected thoughtful birthday gifts, and made token appearances at Amber's glittering charity events. I had long since reconciled myself to my role as the dependable, low-maintenance daughter. That spring, Amber meticulously orchestrated her grandest event yet, a black tie gala at the Boston Harbor Hotel, tickets priced at a staggering $500 a plate. For weeks, it monopolized my parents' conversations, eclipsing all else. Mom, immersed in the decorating committee, Dad, leveraging his vast business connections to secure corporate sponsorships. "This gala will catapult Bright Futures onto the map," Mom gushed during one of our rare phone calls, her voice brimming with almost hysterical excitement. "The governor himself might even attend. Can you imagine?" I couldn't imagine caring so profoundly about impressing strangers, but my polite reply was automatic. "That sounds wonderful. I'm sure it will be a success." "You are coming, aren't you?" she asked, almost as an afterthought. "Of course," I replied, the word escaping without conscious thought, even as the prospect of another evening watching Amber bask in adoration while I stood awkwardly in a corner held precisely zero appeal. Little did I know, I would never make it to that gala. And neither, though for entirely different reasons, would my family. The morning of the gala began like any other workday. I arrived at the lab by 7:30, a familiar fatigue already gnawing at me. I attributed it to the relentless overtime demanded by a time-sensitive research project. But by noon, merely keeping my eyelids from drooping felt like a monumental effort. My colleague, Stephanie, a keen observer, noticed the subtle sway in my stance at my workstation. "Nat, are you okay? You look incredibly pale," she asked, her hand gently steadying my arm. "I'm fine, just tired," I insisted, though the fluorescent-lit lab had begun to tilt strangely, the lines of the benches blurring. Stephanie, privy to my blood disorder, wasn't convinced. "When was your last blood test?" she pressed, her brow furrowed with concern. "About 3 weeks ago," I admitted, a shiver running down my spine. The numbers were a little off, but nothing serious. "That's it," she declared, her voice firm. "I'm taking you to urgent care right now." I tried to protest, to dismiss her worries, but as I attempted to stand upright, a dizzying kaleidoscope of black spots exploded across my vision. A warm, terrifying gush trickled down my leg, staining my lab coat a horrifying crimson. I hadn't even registered my period starting, yet this torrent was profoundly, terrifyingly abnormal. "Oh God!" Stephanie gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "We need an ambulance." Things accelerated with a terrifying swiftness. Paramedics materialized within minutes, their faces grim, their movements precise. My blood pressure had plummeted to dangerous levels and fall was swiftly inserted. As they wheeled me out, the ambulance siren wailing its mournful song, a fragmented thought pierced through the haze, the gala. "My phone," I croaked to Stephanie, her face a blur of worried concern. "Can you grab my phone?" Inside the ambulance, rattling through Boston's streets, I managed to dial my parents. The call went straight to voicemail. "Mom, Dad," I whispered, my voice thin and reedy, "I'm being taken to Boston Memorial. Something's really wrong. It might be my blood condition. Please call me back." I followed up with a frantic text, "Rush to hospital. Doctors concerned. Please call." 20 minutes later, as the ER doctor began his examination, my phone buzzed with Mom's succinct reply, "Hope it's nothing serious. We are busy with final preparations for Amber's gala. Keep us posted." The words, stark and dismissive, twisted a knife in my already plummeting heart. The ER doctor ordered immediate blood work and an ultrasound. When the results flashed across his screen, his expression solidified into a grave mask. "Miss Adams," he began, his voice measured, "your blood counts are critically low, and the ultrasound shows internal bleeding. We need to get you into surgery right away to find and stop the source." "How serious is it?" I asked, my voice a distant echo of my own. "I won't sugarcoat this," he replied, his gaze unwavering. "It's very serious. We've called for the surgical team, they are preparing an operating room now. Do you have family you'd like us to contact?" I tried my parents again, a desperate, final plea. This time, Dad answered, his voice brusque, laced with impatience. "Natalie, can this wait? We are in the middle of the setup for the gala." Sounds of bustling activity, clinking glasses, and distant laughter filtered through the phone, a stark, brutal counterpoint to my silent terror. "Dad," I choked out, my voice cracking with unshed tears, "I'm going into emergency surgery. The doctors say it's serious. I'm really scared." There was a pregnant pause, a void of silence before his indifferent reply. "Surgery? For what exactly?" "Internal bleeding," I managed, fighting to keep my voice steady. "They don't know what's causing it yet." "Is this related to that condition you claim to have?" he pressed, a familiar skepticism hardening his tone. "You know your mother, and I think you might be exaggerating its severity for attention." The words hit me like a physical blow, a vicious, bewildering assault. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Dad, I'm not exaggerating. The doctor says it's life-threatening." "Well, doctors always say that to cover themselves legally," he replied, a chilling dismissal in his voice. "Look, we can't leave now. Everything would fall apart without us here. Amber needs our support tonight. I'm sure the doctors will take good care of you, and we'll try to stop by tomorrow morning." The line went dead. I lay there, numb with shock, the phone still clutched in my trembling hand. Even now, with doctors rushing around me, preparing me for a life or death emergency, my parents couldn't be bothered to show up. A nurse with kind eyes, named Yvonne, entered to prep me for surgery. She must have seen the silent tears tracing paths down my temples. "Is there someone else we should call for you, honey?" she asked gently, her voice a balm in the storm. "No," I whispered, the word a ragged sigh. "There's no one else." Stephanie had rushed to move my car from the lab parking lot, but promised to return soon. Beyond her, my life in Boston was a hollow shell. I'd been so consumed by my career, so desperate to win my parents' elusive approval, that I'd neglected to cultivate any meaningful connections. As my condition continued its terrifying decline, the medical team worked with a heightened, frantic urgency. An anesthesiologist droned through the procedure details, nurses meticulously attached monitoring equipment, and I felt a profound chill seep into my bones, a growing disconnect from the horrifying reality unfolding around me. In a final, desperate gamble, I called Amber. "Amber," I pleaded, my voice barely audible, "I'm at Boston Memorial Hospital. I'm about to go into emergency surgery for internal bleeding. The doctors say it's really serious. Please tell Mom and Dad. I need someone here." "Oh my God, Natalie," Amber groaned, her annoyance palpable, eclipsing any hint of concern. "Tonight, of all nights. You know how important this gala is. There's no way any of us can leave now. Hundreds of people are about to arrive." "Amber," I said, the words heavy with their chilling potential, "I could die." "Don't be so dramatic," she snapped back, her voice tight with exasperation. "You always do this. Create some crisis whenever attention is on me. I've got to go. The caterers need me." The call ended, a sharp, decisive click. And with it, any lingering shred of illusion I harbored about my place in my family's priorities shattered into a million pieces. The surgical team arrived, a phalanx of efficiency. The anesthesiologist, his voice calm, began to administer the sedative. Yvonne held my hand, her grip firm and reassuring, as silent tears streamed down my face. "We are going to take good care of you," she promised, her eyes radiating a warmth that pierced through my desolate terror. "I'll be here when you wake up." As consciousness drifted away, my final thought, a cold, heavy stone in my heart, was a haunting question: would my family even notice if I never woke up at all? The first thing to register was the insistent, rhythmic beeping of monitors, a stark counterpoint to the deep, throbbing ache that pulsed through my abdomen. My throat felt raw, parched, a desert. I tried to pry open my eyelids, but they seemed weighted down, impossibly heavy. "Natalie, can you hear me? You're in recovery." Yvonne's voice, a familiar anchor, cut through the fog. I forced my eyes open, blinking against the blinding, sterile glare of the fluorescent lights above. "Water," I croaked, my voice a ragged whisper. She held a small cup, a straw already positioned, to my lips. "Just small sips for now." After moistening my arid mouth, I managed to ask, "What happened?" A doctor I hadn't seen before, her face kind but serious, stepped into my line of sight. "Miss Adams, I'm Dr. Patel. I performed your surgery. You had a severe internal hemorrhage caused by a ruptured blood vessel in your abdomen, likely a complication of your underlying blood disorder. We had to transfuse 8 units of blood during the procedure." 8 units. I whispered, a chill spreading through me as the medical significance of that number registered. "Yes," Dr. Patel confirmed, her expression softening. "We actually lost you twice on the table. Your heart stopped, and we had to resuscitate you. It was touch and go for a while, but you pulled through. You're a fighter." I died. Twice. The information felt too enormous, too monstrous to process. "How long was I in surgery?" I asked, my voice still weak. "Almost 7 hours," Dr. Patel replied. It's now just past midnight. 7 hours. The gala would be over. A chilling thought surfaced. Has my family been here? Yvonne and Dr. Patel exchanged a loaded glance. We tried calling the emergency contacts in your file multiple times, Yvonne said gently, her voice full of unspoken sympathy. We left several messages explaining the severity of your condition. No one came, I stated flatly, a cold, empty truth. It wasn't a question. I'm sorry, no, Dr. Patel confirmed. Your colleague Stephanie was here for several hours, but we sent her home to rest once you were stable. She said she'll be back in the morning. I nodded, a strange numbness spreading through me, unconnected to the pain medication steadily dripping through my fore. You should rest now, Dr. Patel advised. Your body has been through an extreme trauma. We'll continue monitoring you closely in the ICU for the next 24 to 48 hours. After they left, I lay in the dimly lit recovery room, the enormity of what had transpired slowly seeping into my consciousness. I had nearly died, had actually died, twice, and not a single member of my family had bothered to show. A nurse retrieved my phone, which Stephanie had thoughtfully kept with my belongings. There were no missed calls from my parents or Amber, only a text from Mom, sent around 9 p.m. Gala is a tremendous success. Governor showed up with his entire staff. Amber's speech brought everyone to tears. Hope you're feeling better. With trembling fingers, I opened Instagram. My feed was flooded with posts from my mother, father, and sister, dozens of photos from the gala, elegant decorations, famous attendees, Amber in her designer gown, basking in applause. One image in particular, a cruel, mocking tableau, seared itself into my memory, my parents, champagne glasses raised in a joyful toast, their faces wreathed in delighted laughter. The timestamp read 8:32 p.m., precisely around the time Dr. Patel was restarting my heart. The caption beneath it, perfect night celebrating our amazing daughter. #proud parents, #bright futures gala. I scrolled through more photos, a surreal, chilling detachment washing over me. While I fought for my life, my family was posing for pictures, accepting congratulations, and savoring a 5-course gourmet dinner. Not once, it seemed, had they checked their phones or spared a thought for their other daughter. I set the phone down, staring blankly at the sterile ceiling, too emotionally numb even for tears. The next morning, I was transferred to the ICU. Stephanie, a beacon of genuine care, arrived early, bearing toiletries and a change of clothes for when I would eventually be allowed to wear them. Your parents are the worst people I've ever heard of, she declared, her voice laced with fury, after I recounted the horrifying events. How could they not come? I had no answer. The question had gnawed at me all night. Around noon, my parents finally materialized. Dressed in effortlessly expensive casual wear, they looked remarkably refreshed, well-rested, and utterly unburdened. Mom clutched a small, generic bouquet of grocery store flowers. Natalie, darling, she cooed, leaning in for an air kiss that delicately avoided the tangle of tubes attached to me, you gave us quite a scare. Did I? I asked, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. Of course. When we got all those messages from the hospital this morning, we came right over. This morning. I counted, my gaze unwavering. Not last night, when I was actually dying. The gala ran so late, and we were absolutely exhausted, Dad interjected smoothly, subtly checking his watch. We turned our phones off to get some uninterrupted sleep. You know how it is. No, I replied, my voice steady. I don't know how it is to ignore emergency calls while my daughter is dying. Mom's carefully constructed smile faltered, her lips twitching. Dying? Don't be so dramatic, Natalie. You're always exaggerating these things. I died on the operating table, I stated, the words chillingly precise. Twice. They had to resuscitate me. 8 units of blood. 7-hour surgery. Does that sound like an exaggeration? They looked profoundly uncomfortable, but not, I noted, particularly remorseful. Well, you're fine now, aren't you? Dad said briskly, eager to shift the conversation. That's what matters. Why are you even here? I asked suddenly, a raw question ripped from my gut. Don't you have some post-gala brunch to attend? Natalie. Mom looked genuinely scandalized. We're your parents. Of course, we came to see you. After making sure you got a full night's sleep and had breakfast, I pointed out, my voice laced with bitter irony. After making sure it wouldn't inconvenience you too much. You're being unfair, Dad said sternly, his jaw tightening. We are very busy people. We came as soon as we reasonably could. 25 hours, I whispered, after I was admitted with a life-threatening emergency. Tell me, if it had been Amber in this bed, would you have waited until it was convenient to show up? They offered no answer. Their silence was answer enough. Mom quickly pivoted. The gala was a tremendous success. The governor stayed for nearly an hour, and 3 different news outlets covered it. Amber raised over $100,000. I closed my eyes, a wave of profound exhaustion washing over me. I'm very tired now, I said. I think you should go. We just got here. Dad protested, his voice sharp with irritation. And I appreciate the 10 minutes you've managed to spare me, I replied, opening my eyes to meet his gaze. But as you can see, I'm fine now. No need to waste more of your valuable time. They left shortly after, muttering promises to check in by phone later. They never called. The next day, Amber finally made her appearance, striding in with oversized sunglasses indoors and a designer coffee in hand. Sorry, I couldn't come sooner, she said, her tone devoid of any genuine apology. The post-gala wrap-up has been insane. The media coverage is amazing, though. She then launched into a 20-minute monologue, scrolling through photos and videos from the event, barely sparing a thought for my condition. When she finally, almost as an afterthought, inquired about how I was feeling, she immediately cut me off mid-sentence to gush about a minor celebrity who had unexpectedly graced the gala with their presence. Oh, I almost forgot, she chirped as she prepared to leave. Mom and Dad can't visit today. They are hosting a thank you lunch for the gala committee. I nodded, unsurprised, a desolate calm settling over me. Of course, they are. After she left, I lay in my hospital bed, the past 36 hours replaying in a horrifying loop. Something fundamental had shifted deep within me. The desperate, lifelong craving for my parents' approval, the persistent, foolish hope that one day they would truly see me, truly value me as much as they did Amber, it was gone. Replaced by a glacial, unwavering clarity. I had nearly died alone, literally, because my family couldn't be bothered to answer their phones. The truth was stark, undeniable, and utterly crushing. I was not a priority to them. I never had been, and I never would be. As I lay there, listening to the steady, reassuring beep of my heart monitor, the heart that had stopped twice and been forced back into rhythm, I made a decision. A profound, life-altering commitment. I would no longer chase their elusive love or their impossible approval. I would no longer pretend we were a normal family, with normal, loving relationships. From this moment forward, I would systematically erase them from my life, not with dramatic confrontations or tearful accusations, but quietly, methodically, completely. They would barely register my absence until it was too late to mend what they had so carelessly broken. And when they finally realized the gaping void I had left, I would be long past caring. I remained in the hospital for another week, a prisoner to my healing body. My parents visited twice more, each appearance clocking in at less than 30 minutes, their presence a fleeting obligation. They brought expensive, utterly impersonal gifts, a silk robe I would never wear in a hospital, gourmet chocolates I couldn't eat while on medication. Their visits felt like items to be dutifully checked off a list, rather than genuine expressions of concern. The nursing staff, keen observers of human nature, noticed. Yvonne, who had become a guardian angel during my stay, made no effort to mask her disapproval. "Your colleague Stephanie has been here every day, sometimes twice," she commented after my parents left on their third brief visit, her voice laced with quiet scorn. "She brings you things you actually need and sits with you for hours. Your parents, on the other hand." She didn't need to finish the sentence. We both understood. One afternoon, I overheard my parents' voices in the hallway, their volume rising, unaware my door was ajar. "I can't stay for another hour," my father snapped, irritation thick in his tone. "I have that meeting with the foundation's accountant." "Well, I can't stay either," my mother rejoined, her voice sharp. I promised Amber I'd help her sort through the gala photos for the press release. "She's an adult, Eleanor," Dad grumbled. "She doesn't need us hovering. Amber's fundraiser needs our attention right now. This is a crucial time for the foundation's public image." I know, Mom conceded. "We'll just pop in for 10 minutes, ask how she's feeling, and then head out. She probably wants to rest anyway." They swept into my room with bright, brittle smiles, stayed precisely 12 minutes according to the clock on the wall, and left with perfunctory promises to visit again soon. They didn't return before my discharge. Stephanie, my steadfast colleague, was the one who drove me home from the hospital. She gently helped me up the stairs to my apartment, arranged my medications on the kitchen counter, and stocked my refrigerator with easy-to-prepare meals. "I can stay with you tonight if you want," she offered, her concern genuine. "The doctor said you shouldn't be alone for the first 48 hours. "That's really kind, but I'll be okay," I assured her, managing a weak smile. "My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, said she'd check on me, and I have all the emergency numbers." The truth was, I desperately needed to be alone, to process the tectonic shift that had occurred within me, and to meticulously plan my next steps. After Stephanie left, I sat at my kitchen table, a blank notepad before me, and began to list everything I needed to do. My near-death experience had crystallized a singular, unwavering desire, complete independence from my family. Not just emotionally, but practically, legally, and financially. First, a new sanctuary. My parents didn't possess a key to my current apartment, but they knew the address, a vulnerability that now felt intolerable. I needed a place entirely unknown to them. Second, financial severance. While my income ensured my independence, lingering connections needed to be meticulously severed. My parents were co-signers on my oldest credit card, listed as emergency contacts on my bank account, and, shockingly, beneficiaries of my life insurance policy. Third, medical autonomy. They remained my medical proxies and emergency contacts at both my doctor's office and, alarmingly, the hospital. This had to change immediately. Fourth, an authentic support system. Stephanie was a crucial start, but I needed more connections, more people who genuinely cared for my well-being. That evening, propelled by a new, fierce resolve, I began making calls and sending emails, setting my plan into motion. I contacted a real estate agent about a new apartment. I called my bank to initiate the process of removing my parents from my accounts. I emailed my HR department to update my emergency contact information and life insurance beneficiaries. During my 2 weeks of medical leave, a period of intense, quiet activity, I found a new apartment in a different neighborhood. It was smaller than my previous place, but nestled in a secure building with a doorman, an invaluable layer of protection against unwanted intrusion. I began meticulously moving my possessions, piece by piece, utilizing a discreet moving service Stephanie had recommended. I breathed not a word of this to my family. As far as they knew, I was still recuperating at my old address. I also sought out a therapist specializing in family trauma. Dr. Winters, her gaze empathetic and non-judgmental, listened patiently as I laid bare my family's history and my decision to surgically excise them from my life. "What you're describing sounds like a classic pattern of emotional neglect," she observed during our second session, her voice calm and steady. "Your medical emergency simply brought it into sharp, unavoidable focus." "I feel guilty sometimes," I admitted, a confession barely audible. "Like I'm overreacting or being vindictive." "Natalie," Dr. Winters countered gently, "setting boundaries isn't vindictive. It's self-preservation. You nearly died alone because your family couldn't be bothered to answer their phones during a life or death emergency. That's not a small thing." "They don't see it that way," I sighed. "They think I'm being dramatic." "Their inability to acknowledge the harm they've caused doesn't invalidate your experience," Dr. Winters said firmly. "You're not cutting them off in a fit of anger. You're making a deliberate choice to protect yourself from further harm." Those therapy sessions became a lifeline, guiding me through the emotional maelstrom of my decision. There were moments of profound doubt, moments when the ingrained loyalty, the years of conditioning, made me question if I was truly doing the right thing. Dr. Winters helped me recognize these intrusive thoughts as echoes of a past where my family's needs always trumped my own. By the time I returned to work, my new life was largely in place. I was ensconced in my new apartment, all my emergency contacts updated, my parents purged from my financial accounts, and my will revised. I had shared none of these transformative changes with my family. My mother called once during this period, not to inquire about my recovery, but to extend an invitation to a thank you dinner for Amber's Foundation's major donors. "I'm not feeling up to social events yet," I told her, the truth a shield. "The doctors want me to take it easy for at least another month." "It's just dinner, Natalie," she said impatiently, her voice tinged with exasperation. "Surely you can sit at a table for a few hours. These donors specifically asked about you. They heard you were ill and want to see that you're all right." "They heard I was ill?" I echoed, a cold suspicion crystallizing. "What exactly did you tell them?" There was a fractional pause, a telltale silence. "Just that you had a minor medical procedure and couldn't attend the gala." "A minor medical procedure?" "Not that I had nearly died from internal bleeding. Not that my heart had stopped twice on the operating table." "I won't be attending," I stated firmly. "Send my regrets." "Natalie, this is important to your sister. Can't you think about someone besides yourself for once?" The irony, thick and suffocating, almost choked me. "Goodbye, Mom. I have to go." I hung up and, with a deep, shuddering breath, blocked her number. It was the first overtly hostile action I had ever taken, and it felt terrifyingly, exhilaratingly right. I wasn't ready to face her manipulative tactics. That night, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sunset paint the Chicago skyline in hues my parents would never see from this vantage point. The ache in my chest wasn't just the lingering pain of surgical healing, it was grief. Grief for the family I had always yearned for but never truly possessed. Grief for the wasted years spent striving for a love that should have been freely given. But beneath the grief, something new stirred, a quiet, unyielding determination. I would construct a life that didn't revolve around pleasing people who were fundamentally unpleasable. I would cultivate connections with individuals who valued me for who I was, not for what I could offer them, or how I reflected on their social standing. I was done bleeding for people who wouldn't even notice I was hurt. Over the next 6 months, I meticulously continued my plan of separation. I enacted it gradually, offering my family ample opportunities to notice the widening chasm, perhaps even attempt to bridge it. They never did. 2 months after my surgery, a new research position materialized, an offer from a prestigious medical center in Chicago. The timing felt divinely orchestrated. It represented a significant career advancement, but more importantly, It would establish crucial physical distance between myself and my family. I accepted immediately. When the paperwork was finalized, I waited until just 1 week before my planned relocation to inform my parents. Chicago, my father repeated, his voice laced with mild disbelief, when I finally told him over the phone. Why would you want to move there? It's an excellent opportunity, I explained, my voice carefully neutral. They are doing groundbreaking research on blood disorders. But your life is here, in Boston, he pressed, a faint note of paternal ownership in his tone. Your family is here. I almost asked where that familial concern had been when I was fighting for my life in the hospital, but I kept my voice steady. It's a great career move. I start in 10 days. 10 days? And you're just telling us now? I've been busy with preparations, I said vaguely, offering no further explanation. There was a brief, awkward pause. Well, I suppose congratulations are in order then, he finally conceded. Your mother will be disappointed you're moving so far away. Would she? I thought, a bitter smile playing on my lips. I doubted it. Thanks, Dad. I should go. I have a lot of packing to do. Of course. Let us know if you need any help. I wouldn't. And we both knew it. The call ended, devoid of any genuine emotion on either side. My mother's reaction was similarly lukewarm. Chicago. Well, I suppose that's nice for your career. Will you be back for Thanksgiving? Amber's hosting at her new condo. I don't think so, I replied. I'll still be settling in, and I probably can't get the time off so soon after starting. Christmas then. You must come home for Christmas. We'll see, I said noncommittally. I really can't make plans that far ahead right now. My sister's response arrived via text. Mom says you're moving to Chicago. WTF Nat. Why so far? Who's going to help me with the spring fundraiser? I didn't bother responding. None of them offered to help me move. None of them asked for my new address. None of them seemed particularly saddened to see me go. It only solidified what I already knew. I wasn't essential to their lives. I moved to Chicago in early October, the crisp autumn air a refreshing embrace. My new apartment, a high-rise sanctuary, offered stunning views of Lake Michigan, a vast expanse of blue stretching to the horizon. I dove headfirst into my new job, a challenging and immensely rewarding role that surpassed my previous position. I was working directly with patients now, not just in the sterile confines of the lab, actively helping individuals grappling with conditions similar to my own. Stephanie and I maintained our connection with weekly video calls. She had evolved from a colleague to a true, unwavering friend, checking in regularly, genuinely invested in my well-being. Through her, I occasionally caught snippets of news about my family, though I never actively sought it. Your sister's foundation was featured in some society magazine, she told me during one call, a note of amusement in her voice. There was a photo of your parents at some black tie event. They looked like they were having a grand old time. I'm sure they were, I said, unsurprised, deflecting any deeper discussion. How's the lab? I skillfully steered conversations away from my family, and eventually, Stephanie stopped bringing them up. I forged new friendships in Chicago, cultivating a vibrant, supportive network. My colleague, Daniel, invited me to his book club, where I discovered a diverse group of minds who shared my passion for literary exploration. My neighbor, Jasmine, introduced me to her hiking group, and soon, my weekends were filled with exhilarating treks through forest preserves around the city. I continued therapy, finding a new practitioner in Chicago, who helped me navigate the labyrinthine complexities of my family trauma, guiding me towards healthier relationship patterns. Slowly, deliberately, I constructed a life, a community, where I was valued simply for being me. Meanwhile, my contact with my biological family dwindled to a bare minimum. I didn't initiate calls, and their calls were rare, fleeting, and superficial. I sent impersonal birthday cards with gift cards enclosed, a polite but distant gesture. My replies to their texts were concise, uninformative, designed to discourage further inquiry. How's Chicago? Fine. Work is busy. Are you dating anyone? No. Focusing on career. When are you visiting? Not sure. Schedule is tight. As Thanksgiving approached, my mother launched one final attempt to guilt me into returning home. Amber's prepared a place for you. She's going to all this trouble, and you can't make time for your family. I told you months ago I wouldn't be able to make it, I replied evenly. I have to work the day before and after. This was true. I had purposefully volunteered for those shifts to arm myself with an irrefutable excuse. You could fly in just for the day. That doesn't make sense logistically or financially, Mom. I'm sorry, but I can't make it this year. Fine, she huffed, a storm brewing. We'll miss you. Would they? I doubted they would even notice my empty chair amidst the social posturing and photo opportunities that their holiday gatherings had become. Instead of flying to Boston, I accepted Stephanie's warm invitation to join her family in Michigan. Her parents welcomed me with open arms, and her siblings embraced me as one of their own. We played boisterous board games, collaborated in the kitchen, and shared laughter and stories around the crackling fireplace. It was the most genuine, heartwarming family holiday I had experienced in years. As Christmas drew near, I invoked the same excuse of work commitments to avoid returning to Boston. This time, my mother's pressure was notably diminished, as if she had finally resigned herself to my absence as the new, unsettling normal. I spent Christmas Eve at a lively dinner hosted by my book club, and Christmas Day volunteering at a local hospital, distributing small gifts to patients who couldn't be home for the holidays. In the evening, I joined a small, cozy gathering at Daniel's apartment with other holiday orphans, individuals who, for various reasons, were not with their biological families. It should have felt lonely, this first holiday season away from my family. Instead, it felt incredibly liberating. I wasn't anxiously striving to meet impossible standards, nor was I sitting awkwardly at gatherings where I felt like an unwelcome afterthought. In January, my father called with a surprising request. "Your mother and I are considering a trip to Chicago for a weekend," he began, his voice unusually hesitant. "Perhaps we could see your new place, have dinner." For a fleeting moment, a tiny flicker of hope ignited within me. Perhaps they had finally registered my withdrawal, perhaps they genuinely desired to reconnect. Then, harsh reality reasserted itself. "What brings you to Chicago?" I asked, my voice guarded. "Oh, there's an investment opportunity I'm looking into," he explained, a telltale nonchalance in his tone. "And your mother has always wanted to see the Art Institute." Of course. They weren't coming to see me. I was merely a convenient add-on to a trip already planned around their own interests. "I'm pretty busy these days," I said vaguely. "But let me know when you have firm dates, and I'll see what I can do." They never mentioned the trip again. In February, a profound decision solidified within me. I would agree to one final dinner with my family, a quiet, personal farewell before completing my separation. I flew to Boston for a weekend, ostensibly to retrieve some remaining items from storage, but truly, to say goodbye on my own terms. We met at an upscale downtown restaurant, neutral territory, devoid of shared memories. My parents arrived 10 minutes late, Amber 15 minutes after that. They looked utterly unchanged, as if the past 8 months had merely been a pleasant blur. Perhaps, for them, they had. "Natalie, you look different," my mother remarked, her eyes scrutinizing me across the table. "Have you lost weight?" I had, in fact, gained 5 pounds of healthy muscle from my regular workouts with Jasmine's hiking group. "No," I replied, "just a different hairstyle." The dinner conversation revolved, predictably, around Amber's foundation, my parents' social calendar, and trivial gossip about people I barely remembered from their elite circle. Not once did they ask a meaningful question about my life in Chicago, my work, or my new friends. I sat there, observing them with a strange, almost clinical detachment. These people, who shared my DNA, felt like utter strangers. Or perhaps, I realized, they had always been strangers, and I was only now acknowledging it. When the check arrived, my father paid with a theatrical flourish, as if the grand gesture could somehow atone for everything else. "We should do this more often," my mother chirped as we prepared to leave. "It's not right that we only see you once in 8 months." "Yes," I agreed mildly, a subtle double meaning in my words. "It's not right at all." They didn't catch it. I offered each of them a brief, polite hug goodbye, knowing with absolute certainty that it would be the last time I initiated physical contact. Not out of hatred, but because I had finally accepted that the loving, supportive family I had always yearned for existed only in my imagination. "Safe travels back to Chicago," my father said. "Take care of yourself," my mother added. "Don't be such a stranger," Amber called out as she walked to her car. I nodded and offered a small, non-committal smile. They didn't notice. On the flight back to Chicago, a complex tapestry of grief and relief washed over me. Grief for what could have been, for the family relationships I had always longed for but never truly had. Relief for finally shedding the exhausting pretense that we were a normal, loving family. I had quietly, meticulously erased myself from their lives. And they had barely noticed. The realization stung, a sharp, momentary pang, but it also unequivocally confirmed that my decision had been the right one. Back in Chicago, I completed the final, decisive steps of my separation plan. I changed my phone number, sharing the new one only with individuals I trusted implicitly. I created new email accounts and social media profiles, abandoning the ones my family could access. I set up mail forwarding to ensure nothing important fell into the void. I didn't announce these changes. I simply disappeared from the channels they were accustomed to using, becoming gradually, irrevocably unreachable. If they truly wished to find me, they could. But they would have to make a genuine, sustained effort. Based on our history, I didn't expect them to try very hard. Almost exactly 1 year after my own medical emergency, I was immersed in a research meeting when my phone began buzzing relentlessly in my pocket. I ignored it, focusing on a presentation about a promising new treatment protocol. When the meeting concluded 2 hours later, I checked my phone to discover 15 missed calls and a barrage of text messages from my mother and sister. The first text from my mother, urgent and sharp, read, "Natalie, call immediately. Your father has had a heart attack. We're at Boston Memorial." Subsequent messages escalated in their desperation. "Where are you? Dad's in surgery. This is serious. He collapsed during his morning meeting. They are doing bypass surgery. Natalie, please call. We need you here." The final message, sent just 30 minutes prior, "Your father is out of surgery. Critical, but stable. Where are you? We need you to come home. Now?" I stood in the hallway, staring at my phone, a complex, unsettling mix of emotions swirling within me. Concern for my father, certainly I harbored no ill will towards him. But also, a profound, almost dizzying sense of irony. They were at the very same hospital where I had nearly died while they attended a gala. And now, they expected me to abandon everything and rush to their side. I walked slowly to my office, closed the door, and sank into my chair, forcing myself to think. This wasn't about revenge. I wasn't refusing to go out of spite, or because they had refused to come when I desperately needed them. This was about a deeply ingrained pattern of behavior that had defined our relationship for decades. If I dropped everything and flew to Boston now, what would it truly prove? That they could disregard me until their own needs arose. That despite everything, I would still come running when summoned. That their emergencies deserved immediate, unreserved response, while mine could be conveniently scheduled around their social engagements. I wasn't trying to punish them, I was protecting myself, meticulously safeguarding my emotional well-being from falling back into the insidious trap of old patterns. After careful, agonizing consideration, I composed a text to my mother. I'm sorry to hear about Dad. I hope he recovers quickly. I have commitments I can't break. Keep me updated on his condition. Her response was immediate, a furious, incredulous burst of pixels. Are you serious? Your father could die. Whatever commitments you have can't possibly be more important than family. I stared at the word family for a long, heavy moment. Family. The same family that had been too busy to answer the phone when I was literally dying. The same family that had barely noticed when I moved hundreds of miles away. The same family that couldn't be bothered to ask meaningful questions about my life during our rare, superficial interactions. I typed a simple, devastating reply. I learned what family means from you. Then, with a decisive click, I turned off my phone. The next morning, I sent a modest floral arrangement to my father's hospital room, a card tucked among the blooms that read simply, wishing you a speedy recovery. Natalie. When I reactivated my phone, it buzzed with more missed calls and angry text messages, now including several from Amber. I can't believe you're doing this, she raged. Dad could die and you're acting like it's nothing. What kind of person are you becoming? The kind who values herself enough not to run to people who never ran to her, I thought. I didn't reply. Instead, I called the hospital directly, identified myself as his daughter, and requested an update on his condition. The nurse, her voice reassuring, informed me that he was recovering well from the triple bypass surgery and was expected to make a full recovery with proper care and lifestyle adjustments. I thanked her, relieved he was out of danger, but unwavering in my decision not to go to Boston. 3 days later, my mother left a voicemail on my work phone, a number I hadn't changed. Natalie, your father is being discharged tomorrow. He's asked about you repeatedly. I don't understand how you can be so cold. This isn't the daughter we raised. When you're ready to explain your behavior and apologize, we'll be waiting. I deleted the message without responding. A week passed, then 2. The initial angry messages gradually softened into confused ones, then hurt ones, and finally, surprisingly, contemplative ones. Natalie, my mother's text read, I've been thinking about what you said about learning what family means from us. What did you mean by that? Call me when you can. And then, most astonishingly, from my father, Natalie, it's Dad. My heart attack has given me time to reflect on many things, including our relationship. I sense that something is deeply wrong between us. I would like to understand what's happened. Please call when you're ready. I didn't call. But I did send a brief email. I'm glad you're recovering well, I wrote. I'm not ready for a phone conversation, but I will say this. When I was hemorrhaging internally and coding on an operating table last year, you and Mom were at Amber's gala, having turned off your phones because you didn't want to be disturbed. That taught me everything I needed to know about my place in this family. I wish you well, but I need to protect myself from further disappointment. My father's response arrived the next day. I don't know what to say except that I'm sorry. At the time, we didn't understand the severity of your condition. We thought you were exaggerating, as we believed you often did about your health. I see now how wrong we were. Would you consider family therapy? We want to make this right. I reread the email several times. There was an acknowledgement of wrongdoing, yes, but also a persistent qualification. We didn't understand, we thought you were exaggerating. Even in their apology, they couldn't fully own their behavior without a hint of deflection. I replied simply, "I'm not interested in family therapy at this time. I need space to heal on my own terms." They respected my wishes, at least for a while. The messages became less frequent, though they didn't cease entirely. My mother sent sporadic updates about my father's recovery. Amber occasionally forwarded links to articles she thought might pique my professional interest, small, tentative attempts to maintain some connection. I responded politely but briefly, revealing nothing substantial about my life or feelings. I wasn't being cruel, I was being cautious. Years of insidious emotional neglect couldn't be erased by a health scare and a few halting apologies. 3 months after my father's heart attack, my mother called my work number again. "Natalie," she began, her voice strikingly different, humbler, perhaps even brittle. "We've been talking a lot, your father, Amber, and I, about you, about how we've treated you over the years." Her voice wavered. "We didn't see it before. How we always put Amber first, how we dismissed your medical condition, how we weren't there when you needed us most." I remained silent, listening, my heart a complex knot of conflicting emotions. "Your father's heart attack made us realize we could lose you," she continued, her voice catching. "That we might have already lost you in ways that matter most. We'd like to try to make amends, if you'll let us." "What exactly are you proposing?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral, guarding my emotions. "We'd like to visit you in Chicago," she said, a hopeful tremor in her voice. "See where you live, where you work. Get to know your life there. No expectations, just a chance to start understanding who you are now." I considered the request carefully. A part of me wanted to refuse outright, to maintain the protective walls I had so painstakingly constructed. But another part, the part that had been diligently working through my feelings in therapy for over a year, recognized this as a potentially crucial step in my own healing journey. "I'll think about it," I said finally. "I'll let you know." After a thoughtful discussion with my therapist, I agreed to the meeting, but strictly on my terms. Not at my apartment, which had become my sacred sanctuary, but at a neutral restaurant. Not for an extended visit, but for a single meal. A controlled environment where I could gracefully exit if necessary. I wasn't ready to let them fully back into my life, but I was ready to hear what they had to say. 2 years after my near-death experience in that Boston hospital, my life had transformed in ways I could never have imagined. Chicago had truly become home, a vibrant tapestry woven around my own needs and values, no longer tethered to the exhausting pursuit of approval that never came. My research was thriving. I had published 2 significant papers on treatment protocols for rare blood disorders, and was leading a clinical trial that showed immensely promising results. My own condition was meticulously managed with a treatment regimen I had, in part, helped to develop. My social circle had expanded beyond my initial connections. The book club had introduced me to Maria, now my closest friend, who shared my passion for scientific mysteries and quiet Sunday mornings. Daniel, from work, had blossomed into both a valued colleague and a regular hiking companion. Jasmine and her husband frequently invited me to their boisterous family gatherings, where I was embraced as an honorary aunt to their 2 young children. I had even cautiously started dating someone, Michael, a pediatric oncologist I had met at a medical conference. Our relationship was still nascent, but it was built on mutual respect, intellectual camaraderie, and a genuine interest in each other's lives and work. Through therapy, I had diligently processed much of my grief over my family relationships. I no longer woke with that hollow ache in my chest, nor did I feel the sharp sting of rejection when I saw happy families together. I had accepted that while my biological family might never fulfill my emotional needs, I possessed the power to create connections that did. My contact with my parents and sister had settled into a predictable, manageable pattern: occasional emails, brief phone calls on major holidays, impersonal gifts exchanged on birthdays. I maintained these minimal connections not out of lingering obligation, but as an integral part of my own healing process. Complete severance, I realized, wasn't necessary. What truly mattered was that I now controlled the terms of our interaction. Then came the unexpected visit request from my parents. After careful consideration, I agreed to meet them at a lakefront restaurant I liked, but didn't frequent regularly, a place devoid of emotional significance to me. They arrived 10 minutes early, looking strangely nervous and out of place, a stark contrast to their usual self-assured demeanor in social settings. My mother, I noticed, had aged visibly in the 2 years since I'd last seen her. My father, still recuperating from his heart attack, moved with a slower, more deliberate gait than I remembered. "Natalie," my mother said, stepping forward as if to embrace me, then halting, sensing the subtle barrier I unconsciously projected. "Thank you for agreeing to see us." We sat at a table overlooking the serene expanse of Lake Michigan, an awkward silence stretching between us until our drink orders arrived. "Your city is beautiful," my father offered, gesturing vaguely towards the shimmering water. "I can see why you like it here." "Yes," I agreed, a faint smile touching my lips. "It suits me." "We've missed you," my mother said abruptly, her voice tinged with a raw honesty I hadn't expected. "More than I think we realized we would." I simply nodded, offering no reciprocal sentiment. "Why are you here?" "Really?" I asked, cutting to the chase. They exchanged glances, a silent negotiation passing between them. My father cleared his throat, his gaze steady. "When I had my heart attack," he began slowly, his voice laced with a newfound vulnerability, "and you didn't come, it forced us to confront some uncomfortable truths about how we had treated you. About what we had taught you about family through our actions." "We were wrong," my mother interjected, her voice breaking slightly, a genuine tremor. "The way we prioritized Amber, the way we dismissed your health concerns, the way we weren't there when you nearly died, we were wrong, and we're deeply sorry." "We don't expect forgiveness," my father added, his hand resting briefly on my mother's. "We just want you to know that we understand now what we did. And we'd like a chance to do better, if you're willing to give us that opportunity." I studied them carefully, meticulously searching for the familiar tells of old patterns, the subtle dismissiveness, the flashes of impatience, the performative concern that so often masked true indifference. I didn't see those things. What I saw, instead, were two people confronting the painful, unavoidable consequences of their choices. "I appreciate your apology," I said finally, my voice calm and measured. "But you need to understand something. I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago. I don't need your approval anymore. I don't organize my life around trying to earn your attention. If we are going to have any relationship going forward, it will be on different terms." "What terms?" my mother asked, leaning forward, surprisingly receptive. "Honesty. Respect for my boundaries. Acceptance that I have a full life here that doesn't include you in every aspect. And most importantly, no expectations that I'll drop everything when you decide you want my attention, the way you expect Amber to do." They nodded, seemingly absorbing my words. "We can accept those terms," my father said, his voice firm. "We just want a chance to know you again. The real you, not the version of you we thought we knew." We talked for nearly 3 hours. They asked questions about my work, my friends, my life in Chicago, questions they had never bothered to ask before. I answered honestly, but maintained a careful emotional distance. This wasn't a tearful reconciliation, it was a negotiation of new boundaries. When we parted, there were no dramatic declarations of renewed family bonds, no effusive hugs. Just a cautious acknowledgement that perhaps, with time and effort, we might cultivate a healthier, albeit fundamentally different, relationship. My relationship with Amber evolved separately from my parents'. A month after their visit, she called me directly, a rare occurrence. "I've been thinking a lot about us," she said without preamble, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. About how I never really saw what was happening with you. How I was so caught up in being the favorite that I didn't notice the cost to you. It wasn't your responsibility to notice, I told her gently. You were a child too. But I'm not a child anymore, she countered, her voice firm. And I've been pretty self-centered as an adult too. I want to do better. I want to actually be your sister, not just someone who happens to share your parents. It was the most self-aware thing I had ever heard her say. We began having monthly video calls, awkward at first, but gradually blossoming into more genuine conversations. She even came to visit me in Chicago, alone, and made a sincere effort to understand my life there. My healing journey continued, both with and without my biological family. I joined a support group for people who had experienced family estrangement, finding immense comfort in shared stories and effective coping strategies. I continued therapy, diligently working through the complex emotions that surfaced as my family dynamics shifted. I built what my therapist lovingly termed a chosen family, a constellation of individuals connected by love, mutual respect, and shared values, rather than mere DNA. We celebrated holidays together, supported each other through life's inevitable challenges, and shared its boundless joys. I maintained careful, deliberate boundaries with my parents and sister. Our relationship, though limited, was more honest and authentic than it had ever been. They were now a small, manageable part of my life, rather than its overwhelming, defining factor. And that, I realized, felt profoundly right. The day I nearly bled out on that operating table, something profound and irreversible shifted within me. I learned that sometimes, the people who should love you the most are the ones least capable of it. But I also learned that I am more than enough, on my own terms. My worth isn't measured by their approval, and my life is infinitely richer now that I've stopped chasing it. Sometimes, the truest, most essential form of self-love is knowing precisely when to walk away. Have you ever had to distance yourself from family for your own emotional well-being? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might just be the beacon someone else needs. If this narrative resonated with you, if it sparked a flicker of recognition, or a wave of understanding, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of healing and self-discovery. Remember, creating boundaries isn't selfish, it is absolutely essential self-care. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it empowers you to prioritize your own well-being, whatever that transformative journey might look like for you.